Thank you very much. I'd like in particular to thank you, President of Committee of Regions, Mr. Karl-Heinz Lambert, for your kind invitation, and the Rapporteur, Cor Lammers, for his work on the opinion towards the 8th Environment Action Programme. Environmental policy and the Environment Action Programme can only work together as a genuine multi-level approach, and the Committee of Regions is a vital nexus to connect the European level with the subnational dimension. If you look at key components of the program, such as better implementation of legislation, better environmental information to stakeholders, or increasing the sustainability of cities, it is clear that we need the maximum inclusion of EU cities and regions to make our environmental policies and the EAP specifically a success. I'm thus glad to participate today in this timely and topical event to discuss with you about the future of Environment Action Programme for the period after 2020. Some commentators like to criticize EU policy making because it can often appear too incremental or procedural. EU legislation and policies can indeed be resistant to sweep changes, but this also allows for a high level of predictability and also allows for building a sound analysis of what should change and what should remain as it is. Before looking at the future of the Environment Action Programme, I will thus look back at the lessons learned in the current programme, and in doing so, I will base my comments on the fact that the committee I am chairing, the Environment Committee, launched already in 2017 its own midterm review of the implementation of the program, and we assess the shortcomings in order to try to correct the trajectory and be ready to know which aspects should be better addressed in the next program. The critical points of our assessments were various policies instruments under this program are limited, and as a consequence, the results in achieving the various objectives are mixed and unsatisfactory in a number of areas. The policy areas which appear to be most problematic in terms of implementation of relevant legislation are biodiversity, waste management, air quality, and noise. Funding at both EU and national level remains inadequate in terms of real needs. I will take them one by one. On biodiversity, I believe that the decline in biodiversity is one of the biggest environmental challenges of our time. Given the value of biodiversity and the essential contribution of ecosystem services to human well-being and economic prosperity, the protection of biodiversity should receive the highest political attention. We need to commit to immediate, substantial, and additional efforts on biodiversity conservation so as to meet the EU targets and halt the loss of biodiversity. The Commission's communication on bioeconomy strategy is a welcome attempt to address our delay in this respect, but it must not be hampered by the same problems which affect the EAP. I don't need to tell you how important air quality is to our citizens. You are the front line to make the air we breathe cleaner, and often when national governments lag behind, you are forced to take the matter in your own hands. The health of our citizens cannot wait. It is important to recall that the human toll for poor air quality is worse than for traffic road accidents, making it the number on environmental cause of premature death in Europe with over 400,000 premature deaths every year. There is therefore an urgent need to improve air quality in Europe through the full implementation of the air quality standards agreed by the Member States and the European Parliament more than a decade ago. Another area where the report found room for improvement was coherence with other programs. We need to make sure not only that this kind of action programs are properly implemented, but also that they are coherent and in line with the long-term vision at EU international level, such as the European semester, the Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the commitments taken at the conferences of parties, at COPs, as well as with other policies, strategies. For example, a sector which is key to both environment and climate is the transport sector, whose CO2 emissions keep on rising, endangering the reductions achieved elsewhere. Within 1 year, between 2017 and 2018, the Commission issued more than a dozen legislative proposals to overhaul the transport sector in all its modalities and move towards clean and zero-emission mobility by mid-century. Amongst these, we have achieved an ambitious yet credible result at 37.5% of CO2 emission standards for new cars and 31% for vans by 2030. And we are in the last stretch in the negotiations for the reduction of CO2 emissions for lorries. We substantially raised the ambition for both files because we know that we need both pace and robust targets, not just to safeguard the planet, but also to ensure continued competitiveness of our industry. The push for clean vehicle is a global phenomenon, and we cannot make our industry fall behind in this race. On the positive side, the Parliament's report underlined that the EAP, which has now been used for decades, represents still a valid instrument in order to put in practice all our long-term strategies in the environment and climate areas. Long-term strategies should be structured in several subsequent and coherent short-term strategies, which can be easily implemented and monitored. With these considerations in mind, let me turn shortly to some specific suggestions with respect to the 8th EAP. First, we need to send a clear message to the Commission: do not wait or bicker on the preparation of the 8th Environment Action Programme. It is true that the previous one did not contain any provisions for a midterm review, but the Commission is only now completing its final review, and its results will be published in May this year. Preparations for the 8th program should be well underway, as we must have a program that is fully operational as of 1st of January 2021. Secondly, we need the program that is further focused and coherent with other policies. It is imperative that the silo approach in the Commission is overcome. It is no use of having a perfect program if this does not connect effectively with other priorities. Thirdly, the future program must not only be connected to other programs, but also fully anchored to long-term objectives. We have a tough discussion ahead of us on what should be the right long-term climate pathway we choose in order to decarbonize the economy. The Commission issued its communication on long-term strategy at the end of last year, and we plan to have the resolution setting out the Parliament's position in plenary in March, so just in time before the Parliament enters in full electoral season. Fourthly, we need our joint action at European and subnational level to hold Member States to task. The national level often represents the bottleneck which hampers ambition, delivery, and funding in environmental policy. And finally, we need better communication and ownership of the future program. It must be clear that this program is a program for the regions, by the regions, and to the regions. Today's initiative and discussion is highly promising because it shows that this subnational level of the European Union, it is not waiting for someone else to raise the level of ambition when it comes to environmental policies. I thus welcome not only your opinion, but also your continued vigilance and inputs on this subject. So thank you very much.